Good, welcome to our next lecture in how to use Excel, and this time I want to concentrate on how to show data, how to visualize data. It's quite clear that charts are important to us. Why? Because nobody wants to look at large set of data like this one, so we have to put them into nicely understandable parts, and either you analyze them with a tool like a pivot table, or you simply use them by additional calculations. Because here, if you tell him, well, out of this table, do a line chart or something like this, he tries to put every data inside. He tries to group them up to a certain amount, which doesn't fit too much. So what we want to do is kind of add information together, like I did here with the sum ifs table, where we calculate per employee and per object what's the total profit that was made, or per object and per month what's the total profit made. And here we have different approaches to get kind of a nicely easy chart. The first one will be we simply mark it. We tell him under insert one of those charts. And if we choose one of the charts, one of the easy charts, which is the line chart, bar charts, we could see what he did with it. So we have the employee, the car, the truck, the motorcycle. So he simply took every column and color coded every headline of the color coded. And what we can do is by selecting data, tell him, well, we don't want to see the employees. That's one way of doing it. The other way would be, or simply choose only the proper data, and after inserting this into line chart, we could go and say, well, under select data, those series that now have no names, we can edit and tell them per every series where the name is found. This is, for example, quite interesting if we have series with no headlines and the information on what is to be found where, we can put in extra cells where we can reference on, because now we see that the color coding is done for cars, for trucks, for motorcycles. So we stay as easy as possible. We can change the chart type later on to a different kind of line charts. We could change to a column chart or to a bar chart, or even to the other charts like pie chart, scatter plot, stock surface, and so on. So the more complicated ones like waterfall or radar chart. But most of the cases are solved by line chart and bar charts. So if we have our proper chart, the idea of a chart is that people look at it and know what it is about. That means the chart should be as much as possible self-explaining. And here, if you look at it, it's not self-explaining at all, because we have no chart title, so the people don't know what it's about. We have a numbering down here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know that it's employees, but nobody else knows. And we have a y-axis where it says we have numbers like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. The question is, are these pieces kilograms, or is it euro, pound, or whatever? So what we want to do is either use one of the quick layouts where we can have different kind of axis titles, or do we want to decide by ourselves what we want to see? So here in the add chart elements, we have the option of adding and taking away every little chart element that we want to have. One thing is, for example, the axis title horizontal, and we can add another axis title vertical. You could decide if you want to have the legend at the bottom as we have it, or perhaps right hand side, or on the top, or on the left hand side, whatever you want to have. This is what you can choose from. And if we have the chart title or the axis title, we afterwards only click on it and start typing, because this means we are replacing the axis title with the proper name. For example, here profit in euro, and down here we have the employees, and over here we have profit in euro per employee and object. That makes it much more readable, and of course we can now play around with some of the templates whatever template you take, make sure that you understand if this improves the readability or not improves the readability. And in most of the cases, it looks nice, but if it can be read better is the question. Of course, it's easier nowadays to achieve such a nice chart, and it looks kind of nice, and you can stay with that. The color coding here is done automatically by the choice of colors. So even here you can switch between different colors or monochromatic colors. The question is, when do you use those? And honestly, I think it's okay if cars are always orange, trucks are always blue, and a motorcycle is always violet, then stay to the colors. Otherwise, if it changes constantly, it's kind of irritating. Then I would choose a proper way of dealing with it. And that's the same if you have a corporate identity and typical color codes, use them. Because of course you can click on the proper line, right mouse click, and tell him, well, what color you want to have for that line. So you can adapt it quite easily for your needs, what you want to see and what you want to have here. And that's the same for all of the other objects. You can click on the object, and for every object you can format it. And for the formatting, you have kind of different ways of formatting. For example, for the axis, you can tell him what the minimum, what the maximum is, what the lines in between are, if it's a normal scale or logarithmic scale. And for example, here in our part, if it's a numbering format, you can tell him, well, that should be a currency to make it better readable. Of course, we said we can change the chart type, for example, to the well-known column chart or the well-known bar chart. The problem is that this looks completely the same as the line chart, and you have to decide by yourself if people looking at it will read it better or not, because as we said, we don't do charts for ourselves. The only thing is, please, if possible, don't do 3D charts, because those 3D charts are hard to read at all, because here it's hard to compare this column with that column with that column and that column due to the perspective that you have here. What is it that you want to change, and can we do it? And you can even make it worse by tilting and doing a little bit more of fancy things to make it even worse in comparison what you want to do here. So the 3D chart has only one reason: if you don't want to make it readable easy. This is the case. So here it is quite easy to hide some things. And that's one of the reasons why if I'm seeing the 3D chart, I'm looking very, very closely and very, very exactly on what is behind it. So what we want to do is we want to know how to do it, and there are a lot of different ways and formattings that you can choose to make it readable. Another thing, of course, besides all the normal charts that you can do, is to go for small charts. Here we only have 3 objects, but think about if you have 5 or 10 objects, you would have a lot of lines. So even here, if we do kind of insert a line chart, the line chart itself will be, well, not very good to be read. And if there's more lines, it's kind of getting messy here. So the question is, what can we do? And one solution would go for sparklines. Here, due to the fact that it's January, February, March, May, June, July, November, December, it would be nice to have an overview about the year, which can be done in a cell. So in a cell, do the sparklines, and the sparklines can be found here directly besides the charts, where we say do a line chart and do it in the range from here to here. And the location range is the cell where the sparkline will be displayed. And if we click now on OK, this is the overview about the year. And if we copy it downward due to every row, you see different sparklines per different year. And now what we can do is, for example, say, well, point out high and low points. And due to the fact that we want to distinguish between the two, we can say, well, this is what we want to have. And of course, we can also switch to column or win or loss depending on your numbers and if you are happier with them. But even here, if you have 5 or 10 of them, it is easy to see how they differ between and not so kind of messed up like in a total chart here. That's of course another option to make or to display your data a little bit better. And another thing that you can have in Excel nowadays is if you have kind of data organized like this. So we have here the product, the country, month, the year, kind of type where we differ between plan, current, approved, measures where we differ between units, costs of sales and turnover, and the actual data. We can say, well, analyze this with a pivot table and afterwards with a pivot chart, or we could tell him after we activated it in the options and add-in part. In the add-ins, you find the typical Excel add-ins where you find Solver and the Analysis tool pack. And within the add-ins, you also find the COM add-ins. And within the COM add-ins, you have Microsoft Power Map, Microsoft Power Pivot, and Microsoft Power View. And after activating this, you find here a new option of 3D maps. And so we don't need to mark anything. He recognizes which data to take. And the only thing is, again, we need headlines. And if we do the 3D map now, you see that he recognizes the country instantly. And in our recognition, you see that we have our kind of overview here because he recognized in the list of countries, those are the countries that are in there. We have here the different headlines and here the different fields that we can address. And for example, the data can be going into the height. So we know the totals will be displayed here in the height of the column. And we could, for example, take the measure into the category. So we can differ now between cost, turnover, and units. To make it a little bit more better, we could put the bars beside each other. And we could, for example, use the type in the filter and to decide we only want to see approved data or we only want to see planned data or planned and ist. And so this is what we want to do here and what we can choose from. And not only can we choose from those settings, but we could say, well, do it as bubbles, and the larger the bubble is, the larger the total amount is, and we can see what the information is behind it. And another thing that really looks nice is we could change it to a visualization of the regions. And here you can see now the different regions color-coded differently for the different ideas. Be aware that we can have map labels so we can know where we are. We could flatten the map or do it as a globe again. And the data is astonishing because you can really go into detail. And that means if you have your information being by street, all you have to do is put the information inside where is the street be found in your data, and you can allocate it into every single street in different areas here because that's based on the Nokia maps here. So it's kind of nice, and you can do this kind of in the way to display different aspects, to change these, and by changing or while changing we can record it, and the recording then can be taken as a video into a presentation. So you could do lots of funny things with your presentation and to be kind of a very interesting presentation that you show to your people. And of course that will be remembered. Hope that helped you a little bit. Try it out, play around with it a little bit. There's a lot of potential failure with that, and you have to see how it behaves and have fun and exploring data. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, see you again next time.